Good question. That I can't really give you a definite answer, but I would think that I might have been around 10 or 11. Not, I used to go out and try to keep up with my shoes and and boots and just go out and just have fun. But surprisingly, how things went, we as soon as there was an interested group in that small village, and we ended up going into playing on a team where I mentioned we ended up getting a jacket, and then all of a sudden I was playing on a senior team because they didn't have any players, So I went. It was, but of course I was a big kid when I was small too, and that was interesting. I ended up. My brother was a goalie. As a matter of fact, my brother Johnny, he played goal, and we went together, and we were not even scouted to go to Weyburn, Saskatchewan. That would have been in the early. That would have been in the early '60s. That when Weyburn first had their junior hockey team, and my brother was a goalie, and it just seemed to be to me that you played wherever you could just to we already had a goalie, and that was my brother. So I was on wing, and Larry Horning, a fellow from the same village, he was a defenseman. So just wherever we could go, and we didn't really have anything you could consider really organized. It was just we were happy that we had the rinks flooded. I can recall seeing the trucks coming in. There's a fellow who was interested in seeing the kids skate out in the outdoor rink, and we had a little warming hut there, and it was, like when you say organized, it was kind of disorganized, but for the best, for the place in Glenbane, that was really wonderful. The age between 10 and 10 and I would say 14, it was we were playing quite a bit of hockey, like I had mentioned. We'd go up and heck, you'd play with anybody that you could. I ended up playing on a senior team, and say at 13 years old, So whatever team was there, we'd play with, and it was just a pickup teams. Basically, is what it was. Really, very little organization. Just anybody that could play would play, and it was. And if it were not for a few people that were really interested in promoting the kids' youth at that time in sport, we would not have been able to have a pro career for sure. And then fortunately, when I was 14, there was a scout by the name of George Lambert. He was he was scouting for Detroit at that time. And Weyburn, they were coming into the league, into the SJHL, Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. And they scouted my brother, the goalie. He was a goalie, and they wanted him to come. And there was two tag-alongs there, and that was myself and Joe and Larry Horning. And at any rate, when I was, I stayed and played in Glenbane until when I left home, like I was saying, at 14. I was invited to the camp, and I was called back to participate in the Junior B camp. And I made the team, and that's where I spent 6 years in Weyburn. 2 years at Junior B and 6 years of Junior A, or 4 years of Junior A, for a total of 6 years under the same coach, Jack Shoup. The equipment when I first started, it's hard for me to recall because it was all people give me things to wear. And, sort of, you wore what you could sort of get. And I recall my first pair of skates that I bought. I worked for them for the money to be able to buy the skates, and I believe they're the name of J.C. Hagens, and they were too big. And there's a fellow, actually, Jimmy Skinner, or he was with Detroit Red Wings, and they come down to the training camp, and he said, "What are you doing with those skates? They're so big. You should get skates that would, fit your feet." Well, I thought I was going to grow into them, so, but and then in terms of sticks, and we may do with what, like here. In this day and age, the sticks cost quite a bit of money. Well, I was going around trying to repair sticks, but anyway, it was. And during that time, we just made do, and I think that the other teammates shared some of their equipment with me. I'm sure of that, and so it was a community effort to get that everybody was doing their part so that this kid could play and that kid could play, and I'm sure that exists to this day. The old rinks, I mentioned the Kincaid, Gravelberg, Vanguard. Those were the arenas that were closest to us. Hodgeville. But when Glenbane is located approximately 60 miles from Swiftcurrent, Saskatchewan, and that would be 30 miles south and about 30 miles east. And in that area, we had a number of small towns, but there was only a few towns that had closed-in arenas, and a couple other towns, I believe that they still had at that particular time. I believe they still had grain in their arenas because they had these Quonset type arenas that if you'd store grain for X number of years, that it would become your arena to do with whatever you wanted to do with it. But in going back, some of the things that I enjoyed the most, like I say, was going to these tournaments. And to this day, when I go to these small arenas like an Oak Bank, I can smell the French fries, and it just brings back memories, or the other smaller arenas in this area. And that, to me, is a highlight. To this day, I still have those French fries. Well, I ended up playing with one of my idols, probably the biggest idol, and that was Bobby Hull. Probably the number one. Well, without a doubt, number one. And I was pretty lucky. But mind you, Gordie Howe and these guys, I mean, you just, for the longest time, too, we never, in the village of Glenbane, we didn't really have, we didn't have power. And so we didn't see many of these games on TV, but you could hear some of the games on the radio. And it's kind of interesting how sometimes the absence of things really sparks your interest, So, and I remember listening to games on the radio, and then later like I say, we ended up fortunate enough to be able to get a TV, and we watched some of these games. And you heard, the Richards out of Montreal, Belleville, and these guys. I mean, it was really something that inspired me for sure. There was a guy by the name of, well, his nickname was Butch, but his actual name was Joel Leck. His dad had the grocery store, the only grocery store in Glenbane. And he had played with the Moose Jaw Canucks. So I ended up getting a ride down, his dad, his name was Joe, and Joe Sr., he would pick me up, and we'd travel to Moose Jaw, which was about 100 miles away. And just the thought of going down to ice level and seeing the smooth ice, I couldn't believe it. It just how people can skate on that. I mean, I was just, so, as you could imagine, being a youngster, wide-eyed, I couldn't believe what I was seeing, and then watching them play, and that continued. I seen a few games in Moose Jaw, and then when Butch ended up going to Grand Forks, there they took me along to see the game in Grand Forks, and we stayed at the Westward Ho Hotel, and it was just amazing, and it just further sparked my interest in wanting to do something in the game. And and luckily for me, I ended up, as I was saying, I was a tag along to a training camp and ended up staying in Weyburn. That was Weyburn Red Wings, and our and we never did win a championship, but we ended up we had a rivalry with Scotty Monroe's teams in Estevan, and they always had a top-notch club. Regina Pats, they had a top-notch club, and it was a good league. It was a real good league, and I ended up playing 2 years of Junior B, and 4 years of Junior A, and some of the games that I recall in one game, we ended up going to the eighth game because for whatever reason we were tied, and then usually a series of 7 games, but this one went 8, and it was played on neutral ice in Regina, which we ended up losing that particular game. I ended up being the captain of a team, and I ended up they actually did have a day for me a day for me in Weyburn when I left, when I completed the 6 years with Weyburn. They had a day for me, and that was a best award that I've ever think of achieving. I ended up getting the odd award, and mainly unsung hero awards. I ended up getting one in that would have been, where the heck was it? It was sort of an unsung award. Ended up getting with the Jets, and then Washington. I ended up getting that, and an award in Philadelphia is like a unsung hero award as well. And so those I cherish very much. But if it would, I would have looked back at it and thinking that maybe if I would have went for the goal scoring award, the top point getter or something. But that's another story. The biggest experience that I had probably was right at the very beginning when I came into a city to play. That experience, and then having the experience and being mentored by Jack Shoup. I mean, that was, I can't think of a better person to be associated with. And we've had a number of them. Our trainer Luke Lashinsky, and so many people that helped us along the way. So that experience in itself, and being accepted into a community, of Weyburn, and the people, the entire city of Weyburn, the fans, the fan base. I mean, what more could you really wish for? And they loved us, and the players, we loved the fans. And the C form was in existence, and I signed that. And it was quite interesting. I ended up, I signed the C form with Detroit. And at that time, I believe I ended up getting like either $100 or $50 or $100 for signing the C form. But the signing of the form, that pretty much was that you would, the concept of that was that you belonged to the parent team that signed you to that form. Whether it's legal or illegal, good question. I don't think at the time it was. But you had the opportunity to go to their training camp, and that's all we wished to go for. to have was that opportunity to go to a pro camp. And so I was very fortunate, but I never ended up getting to Detroit's camp. I was traded while playing junior. I never stopped trying. Let's put it that way. And as long as you try, you can always advance. Try your best. And when a thought really, the thought that I could play, with the top players in the National Hockey League, is when I seen other players that I was playing against when they could, ended up playing at a higher level, and a minor pro, and then eventually in the NHL. Then I knew I had a chance to play. But during the time of being in Glenbane, the NHL was a dream. Probably hardworking, a two-way player. Uh, that's yeah, and I ended up even getting an award for being a two-way player in Philadelphia. But yeah, that's probably it. Hard worker, two-way player, probably an honest player. Definitely, I was probably a better, better goal scorer in junior. But in pro, I ended up, where the players start getting, they're bigger and stronger, and they, when I run, I started defending a lot more. So I became, like I was saying, more of a checker type of player later on. And but initially, yeah, my shots were, instead of inside the post, they were outside the post, over top the net. So, but at any rate, I think that's what a lot of scouts and fans would probably have to say about me, was just more of an honest journeyman type of player. Well, that was during the trade with Leo Boyve, and there was an unnamed amateur player, and that's when I ended up going to Boston, and that was quite an exciting time because that was my last year of junior that I was traded. So what I understand to this day is that Boston wanted me to go to Niagara Falls, and Weyburn wanted me to stay in Weyburn. So I chose to stay in Weyburn, and at the training camp, you're on the same ice surface as Bobby Orr, Phil Esposito. That was a little, Teddy Green was, we had, some great players there, and that was, in the early 70s, and they went twice a day, and the team, there were certain players, they went and played a game that night, and they got beaten. They come back, and they had to skate again. And yeah, no, it's a combination of a number of things. But I would say, yeah, definitely be nervous. Absolutely. I think that the nervous part has always existed in my game. And yeah, no, it was never one of total confidence. Let's put it that way. And you can be up in a series. We were talking earlier. You can be up 3 games and then end up losing the series. And Oklahoma City was awesome at the time. We had a playing coach by the name of Murray Davidson, And that I found to be a little different, to have a playing coach, because I was never used to that. But a number of players that were down playing in Boston, or playing in, you know, like we were involved with them in training camp for the 3 weeks. So we kind of did get to know one another a bit prior than going to Oklahoma City. But during that time in Oklahoma City, I mean, the teams they had an awesome team there a couple of years prior, and like the Boston Farm team, they were doing very well. And our players, the team, was very good, and we had some top players. Wayne Cashman, Ross Lonsbury, Ace Bailey, Nick Beverly, Barry Wilkins, Johnny Arbor. We had a lot of. I think that out of the team that I played with in Oklahoma City, probably Tommy Webster, Steve Atkinson. There'd be probably 3/4 of the players made it to the NHL. In both of the years that I was with them. So that was we did not win the cup. Dallas beat us out both years, and that was the unfortunate part. You never like to lose, and we had the team and the making to have a championship team, which we didn't do. The year then I moved into Hershey, Pennsylvania, for a year, and that to me was one of the best places that anybody could ever wish to play in. For a number of reasons. And there again, we had a coach that was very similar in personality and in style to Jack Shoup. A real father figure. That's what I had in Jack Shoup, and Frank Mathers in Hershey. I couldn't say enough about the way that he ran the organization there. And it was Chocolate City, so it was really good. I ended up having a fairly decent year with Oklahoma City, but we did not, with Hershey, but we did not again win a championship. Springfield Indians beat us out, I believe, in that go around. But my experience of playing in the minors, I couldn't wish for better places to play. The fans treated us unbelievably good. Tremendous, tremendous. The first year, Vic Stasiak was our coach. I ended up, I had a pretty successful year. And, or at least I think I did. I ended up getting I think it was an Unsung Hero Award. But the Flyer experience was similar to the experience that I had with Boston, and Bobby Clarke was our centerman, or Bobby was the leader of the team, one of the leaders, but being on the ice and playing the game, with Philadelphia, it just reminded me so much of where Boston was, where they've been. Coming off that team, and the seeds were planted, being planted in the Flyer organization to play the same type of robust style, and which they did do, but that was a wonderful experience. The LA, there again, it was different. I mean, Jesus Christ, here we got palm trees, of all things, and I'm located, very, I lived in Torrance. We lived in Torrance, and Redondo Beach was very close to us, and so it was all a new experience for us, and in saying that, I was moving around pretty good, and this is another move, but I couldn't really get acclimatized to it. I mean, that was one of the things that I had a tough time with. The weather, there again too. Look at Anaheim and look at Los Angeles now, what they're doing. But At the time when I was, I thought I was looking at more like Minnesota would be, or Winnipeg, places where it's colder, where I'm from. I would have enjoyed that a little bit more, but I loved it there. And, just the whole Larry Regan was a general manager. Jack Kent Cook was the owner. And then going into the Forum and seeing where the Lakers were playing. And, well, I should have even mentioned the Boston Celtics, going up there watching, being being involved in a little bit more, seeing more of what was going on rather than just totally being isolated into the hockey world. So it was nice being in Los Angeles. I really enjoyed the experience, and it was fun. But there again too, you end up on a roster where you've got a number of players on the team, and if you're not a permanent player, or you're in and out of the lineup, and that could take its toll on anybody that really wants to play regular. I requested a trade because I was not playing enough in Los Angeles, and for me at that time, I felt that I had to play, and I think Jake Milford I think he was the GM at that time, and so he ended up, I ended up getting traded, to Washington. Uh, he asked. I remember being asked if where I would want to go, New York Islanders, or because they had some interest in me, and New York to me was pretty busy spot, pretty big. So I didn't really. I kind of shunned with New York and thinking about that, and I chose to go to Washington, which is not a small place either. But I didn't really have a say in that. But that was a good experience too. Uh, it teaches you how to lose the first year. We had a lot of players going a little funny. The only the only time I felt pressure of packing it in was at the end of my career. Not at all at the beginning. It wasn't even in my mind about. No, I was enjoying the game too much and having fun playing, and just yeah, no, it was. We were all in it for the same thing, and there again, our career started at say age 10 or whatever, and now you're 20 at your first camp, so you've got 10 years in already, and so you kind of know what it's all about. But when you're on the ice, and no, that thought had never ever presented itself to me. I'd have to say Bobby Orr was the most talented player that I've ever witnessed and been a part, being on the same ice surface as. Uh, yeah, I mean this guy would. Yeah, no, there's no doubt in my mind that for me, in my opinion, would be Bobby Orr. And we're talking a lot of good hockey players. Mind you, I played against Wayne Gretzky when he was only 18 too. But Wayne, he was another. I mean, what a great player he was. Bobby Clark and a lot of great, like you're saying, Lafleur, Esposito, all these players, but nobody could, and even Bobby Hull. I would have to say that if I would have to go with Bobby Orr. And I know Bobby very well. I know both of those players better than any. For me, uh, although I didn't play with Bobby Orr that much, but with the amount of time that I spent with the Boston organization, he would, in other words, if I compare him, I was a teammate of Bobby Hull's for quite a, for my time here in Winnipeg. And they had one of the best lines that I've ever witnessed. Uh, but just knowing what Bobby Orr could do for a team, I would have to go with him. To me, they are all pretty tough. uh, Yeah, Teddy Taylor was tough. I mean, he was tough. Cam Connors was tough in the WHA. Kemi Claxon, he was probably the toughest fighter that I've seen. Or maybe not. Well, Fergie's got a rate up there. John Ferguson, as far as a fighter, but it was hockey night in Canada, and Fergie got in a fight with a guy by the name of Simon Nollet. And Simon Nollet's, we called him Quick. He was really quick with his hands, putting the puck. He did a good shot. Uh, really a good teammate. But anyway, with this fight, he had Fergie about 2, 3 times before Fergie even knew what was going on, and it did cut him a bit or whatever. But Serge Savard, he often kidded Fergie about this, about getting beat by Simon Nollet. And during that, maybe that's why I wasn't a goal scorer. But anyway, what had happened, we beat them. I believe that game was 3-1. I ended up getting the 2 goals. And we go back to Philadelphia. Nobody said a word about great game, won the game, scoring, a couple goals. And I shouldn't even let the cat out of the bag when I say that, but I did. I just did. But the fans, they are so. The whole thing was for the Fergie's fight, right? So that's maybe why you say about the nastiest. But then I decided the goal scoring wasn't the way to go, so I stopped scoring goals. No, I just kidding about that one. Biggest change, no doubt, is like the rule change. Uh, that taking the red line out, how fast the game has gotten, and the obstruction rules. Which it can be a conflict in some ways. That you can't pick players. You're not allowed to. Heaven. Right now I'm at loose ends as far as watching some of the games that we're seeing in the playoffs now. They're letting everything go, just about. And where's the consistency in refereeing? During the year and playoffs are totally different. No, the game's the game. The rules are the rules. The rules are there. So, but in saying that, I think that was the same way back then too. Everybody tries to bend the rules. I've never seen a real nice guy come in first yet, where you don't try to bend the rules. You got to be a borderline rule breaker to compete and win. When I arrived here, that was with the European involvement. We had at that time, I believe, was like 9 Europeans on our team. And I seen the line, a couple of the lines that we had, and then playing with them, I couldn't. I've never seen better plays made anywhere. And I've been with Boston. Like you've got Esposito, Hodge, and Cashman, say, for an example, playing. Well, Anders, Olf, and Bobby, they made they made plays that were more of magician plays, in comparison. And not saying that Esposito and Cashman and Hodge couldn't make plays, because they really, really did. But it was a different style of game that we were playing at that time here. A more European influence, moving the puck. But in saying that, I recall Bobby Hall. I was playing with Willie Lindstrom and Mats Lind at that time, and Bobby just mentioned to me, he said, Billy said these guys might need a little bit of help. And I'm talking about the physical part of the game where you've got the opposing teams would try to take advantage of the European players. so as soon as that did happen, you stuck up for your teammates, and before long, it was kind of known that you're going to stand up for them, and what I recall the game, I've never seen as many North American players, play a type of game. They'd never play that way against other North American teams, but they tried to, take advantage of the European players and tried to intimidate them. Let's put it that way. And so it was a game of more of intimidation that we had to contend with, but to show the strength with the Jet organization or the teams, the players that we had. There isn't such thing as a European that is scared, not afraid to go into corners and this type of thing. In my mind, anyway. I ended up just being kind of inquisitive of what is, how the World Hockey League is going, and with Bobby Hull. I mean, he was my number one eye. Let's put it that way. And he was. With the Jet organization, and they had 2 years. I believe that they were in existence 2 years prior to my coming. Either 2 or 3 years. Thinking back, the reason I ended up coming to Winnipeg was when I was in Washington, and I mentioned to my son at the time. I said, and my wife, I said, and my other son, and I said, we're moving home. We've got 3 children, and we're going to move. We're going to go back home or move back to Weyburn, and for the summer, I had a hockey school there. And my oldest son, Bob, said, "What home, Dad?" That got me. So I decided, well, we've got to make a stand here sooner or later, and if it wasn't for my wife and my son, my family, I may have stayed in the NHL a little longer. But wade through everything, I decided to come back to a place where I felt that I would make home. Well, we had a couple comedians on our team, really good guys. Willie Lindstrom or some of those guys, they somehow they got. Somebody must have thought that they reminded them of I don't know what, a tractor, just. I think it was probably Willie Lindstrom, or he was probably the one. He's the guy that said it the most times to me, tractor, and then it caught on, but exactly where it come from, I couldn't tell you. But it caught on, and so I've been named the tractor for a long time, and I guess it's just keep plugging away, don't quit. I hope it's a John Deere, because when I was a kid, I used to like the sound of the John Deere tractors. Oh, undoubtedly, the highlights would have been, winning 3 Avco Cups, and each year would have been. Very much a highlight. The last year that we, the first year of, you won the Avco Cup. The first year is just unbelievable. We went to training camp in Europe, and that was an eye opener. For me, the way the game, totally a different style of game, and just everything about that year, and the fans again too. Playing in Quebec City, it was unreal. The highlight of winning the 3 Avco Cups and what we had to accomplish to win them. And then Bobby Alphen-Anders left, in the last Avco Cup, and then we inherited some players from Houston. And but the team was on our last year. The league only consisted of 6 teams, and so it was, but it was still very competitive, and but it was good, and we really wanted to win that last one too. With the new players to, uh, and there's Morris Lukowich, Scotty Campbell, Terry Ruskowski, Rich Preston. Yeah, we had a number of players. Kim Claxton come in from Indianapolis, but we had a good team, a real good team. The favorite time. See, I didn't really feel a part as much of winning the Boston with Boston because I didn't play very much. So that's kind of hard maybe for somebody to understand that there's a Stanley Cup, the greatest cup that you could be a participant in and play with. But my feeling was more of the AFCO Cup, to where I was being able to contribute more, and if that makes sense. We're playing the national team of Russia. So a lot of the top players are still on this team. And we know just how much it meant to Canada to win that series. And now we're up against most of these players. This lowly team from the Winnipeg Jets are playing against this national team. And it was remarkable in a sense that, yeah, we ended up going to Japan and playing I believe it was 3 games in Japan, and they beat us there. And I don't really recall, uh, the scores at this particular time. But I do know that when we come back home and played them, we ended up being the first club team, to ever beat the Soviet national team. And I don't really know how many club teams that they played previously. Uh, that I don't really know. If they have played, whether other teams could have beat them or not. But we were very fortunate that our hotline was hot. Bobby Olfen-Anders and the other players were able to do their part as well. But that experience was just awesome. I mean, just yeah, that's a standout in my mind about a particular game that was just outstanding. Ellsworth said that he seen this hockey. It was crisscross hockey, and and I often recall him, talking about this, that this is the greatest way to play the game. And when I ended up being with the European players or seeing more international hockey, then I knew what Ellsworth was talking about. Seeing the World Hockey League go down from, I believe it was like 12 teams when I first came, and then we had 14 teams, then down to 8 teams my third year. And the fourth year, we knew that we were going to go into the NHL. They were going to, I believe, like there was Edmonton, Calgary, and Quebec City. They were going to, join the National Hockey League, and then, they just, so you knew that, I knew from the time that the NHL was coming in, and I was just hoping that I would be able to be a part of it, which I was. John Ferguson, signed me to a contract. My bargaining chips at that particular time, I didn't have any, and at my age, and then again too, my body was wearing down. I ended up getting a neck injury, and it was even hard to, I started to where I just wanted to put my head back and just have some rest, intermittent rest every now and again, because yeah, I was just having some problems, and so I knew that my career was close to being over. So I was fortunate enough to stay with the Jets. John, he ended up having me come back for the year, the first year, and but I knew that before long it was going to be time for me to quit playing. The year I thought was it was excellent in a sense of the NHL is in Winnipeg. I mean, that is fantastic. I mean, there again, too, the fans, the people, and the people that made it happen in the World Hockey League. I can be forever thankful for these, the people that started the World Hockey Association, and then the people that that fought to keep the team alive here in Winnipeg. Michael Gabati, Barry Shankron, all these people that helped keep the team going in Winnipeg. Not to, well, I should have mentioned Ben Haskins and just everybody. The year in the playing the year, I did not play very much. As a matter of, I knew that the team was going. They wanted a younger team, and it was just a matter of time before I would evolve, unless I was a top player, in the organization, that I would continue playing for them. So I ended up, not playing very much, and I volunteered to go down to Tulsa, and I ended up, going to play in Tulsa for probably at least 2 months, if not more, because riding the bench is not fun. I don't like to just watch the game. And John, he felt very very strongly about the type of person that I was at that time, that he offered me a scouting position with the organization the year after I finished, after the inaugural year here, and which I had a inaugural year in Washington too, and so that's two back to back, and yeah, no, so you learn from one and to the other that it's not going to be easy, and it was not easy, but like I say, you learn from losing, and I sure had a good lesson number one with Washington. Well, John first offered me a job scouting, so I ended up spending just about 20 years with the organization scouting, like Winnipeg Phoenix. So I spent a lot of time scouting, for them. So I did stay, part of, my part in hockey was still ongoing, and as I, reflect on that experience, I may have chosen a different path. I would have probably went into coaching, because scouting I was pretty, like you go to games and you're watching games, and then you do a lot of traveling. I mean, I ended up, being, the amateur director of amateur scouting with the Winnipeg team for a while. And the time you spend away from home, like, it'd be about 8 months out of 12, you'd be away from, your home base. So that was, but you're still part of the game. I mean, it's still, you're really involved in the game. So, but now it's different. I'm a part of I'm still really involved in hockey, watching my grandchildren play. So that's the exciting part now. But in total, I was involved in just about 25 years of scouting. Can be a roller coaster ride. Can be a huge roller coaster ride, and I would like to think of and then too, like I mentioned, immaturity. as part of, like first of all, you're taking somebody from a very small town and then putting them into, so your childhood memories reflect on your attitudes a lot more than what I'd thought. And, but in saying roller coaster, it's so easily, I spent a year playing with the Washington Capitals and then coming to Winnipeg, and my whole, I should even, go back to say about when I first started, the experience of driving, to unknown areas and regions and having a car that you don't know is going to make it or not, and then so many things, and then going into cities that you're totally unaware of. And so the whole adventure was an adventure. And you got to do what you got to do. I mean, I wanted to play hockey, and you sacrificed and you did what you had to do to play. And along the way, when I say, a roller coaster, yeah, absolutely, because you can't get any higher than being with the Stanley Cup winning team. Going to Philadelphia was really wonderful. Not to mention all the other, my stops in Weyburn and along the way, but just the pro end of it. Then you get traded, and that was a crusher to me. I mean, somebody doesn't want you, and that to me does a lot more to people than what you. And they should actually have, in my mind, they should have psychologists. They should have been involved in different things for players I'm sure they do now, dealing with it. But here you're on your own to deal with things, and so your mind can play tricks on you sometimes, and then the grass seems to be greener on the other side of the fence until you get there, and then it's kind of the same. So. You kind of level out, and then I went from Palm, you've got Palms, in Los Angeles we had Bob Pulford was the coach, and you've got palm trees around there, and when you've got too many players, you got to satisfy everybody. And I recall having. One of the players that I was competing against was a kid that they only played against the teams that were, well, not really all that good. And then I would play against teams that were better, and then I had to check better players. And that was my role, was checking. And but anyway, so that led me to changed my game a bit, and then you felt a little bit more insecure, and then that's why I chose there's another roller coaster ride going to Washington, and was it ever a roller coaster ride there? Just seeing how the different people would react to winning and, to losing that much, and believe you me, you've got to be, we had Dougie Moens in Washington. He was a long-time National League player, and what a great guy. Ronnie Lowe was our goaltender. Ronnie Lowe was crying a number of times, so you sense, and I said, Ronnie, I said, come on. I said, this might be, the best thing for, can be the best thing for players, that really care about the game. The ones that don't care, that think it's a goof-off type of thing, losing so many games and just laughing about it, they're going to move on. But the way you are, you're going to be a career hockey player, and you're going to have a good career from it. And so I think it teaches people how to have a good attitude, and no matter what circumstance you're in. And lo and behold, coming back to there again, looking at the green side of the grass, and I came to Winnipeg. And that really, really, those were the best years of, I'm on the ice with my idol, and then on a line with European players. Willie Lindstrom, Mats Lind, Kurt Larson, Alf Anders, Lars Erik Schuberg, and plus all the other North American players that we had at the time. So then that coaster ride was high, and and then you do also have a roller coaster in scouting. It's unbelievable how you win and lose with your team, how the ups and downs continue to go. And I guess it's like, it's life. It's part of life. Win some, lose some, and you got to make the best of it.